Namaste, you're on the Nation at 5 and coming to you with from a very busy and buzzing newsroom right behind me here at CNN News 18. Ladies and gentlemen, there's plenty that is happening all around. But we're going to start with this entire wedge that's now being driven deep between Pakistan and Afghanistan. All this ceasefire has gone for a toss. The moment the drone strike happened in Kabul with Ayman al-Zawahiri taken out and that Pak airspace was given for it, the Taliban are upset. The Taliban are seeming to come back and say, we have had enough of your meddling and enough of your skullduggery. In this case, right now, we have news just coming through where the Tehreek E Taliban Pakistan have now turned around and pushed a huge offensive against the Pak forces. Top sources are telling CNN News 18 that 3 Pakistan soldiers were killed in a TTP raid near the Afghanistan border. The gunfight erupted in Kharlachi in the Kurram district. TTP forces suffered heavy casualties in this entire gunfight. Ceasefire was called off after Zawahiri was killed in the US drone strike. US used Pak airspace for the drone strike on Zawahiri in Kabul, and the Afghan and the Taliban, especially the Taliban, very, very upset because of this. Pakistan has also demanded the Afghan government's arrest, that the Afghan government arrest Jaish head Masood Azhar. So far, the Tehreek E Taliban Pakistan has carried out 7 attacks on the Pak police in the last 3 days. TTP claims it foiled the Pak police raid in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also. TTP also claims that it targeted the Pak army in South Waziristan, wounding 2 soldiers. The TTP also claims that the Pak army killed Tehreek E Taliban prisoners in a fake encounter. And perhaps somewhere it all stemmed with the way the Pak forces, ahead of the FATF on-site visit, have tried to up the ante and trying to show that they are really attacking and cutting down the very, trying to cull the very, snakes they bred in their backyard. The entire terror groups and terror outfits that have got the protection of the deep state of Pakistan in the past today now stand exposed, and there is a repercussion to that. This fake encounter seems to have triggered a spate of attacks and the Pak security personnel, and there has been attrition. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, and Alok Bansal, Director India Foundation with us. Namaste, gentlemen. Plenty of ground to cover. There was a significant development last evening. Sushant Sareen, you were with us when that entire farce of a letter was pushed out by the Pakistanis. But now what we are seeing with this fight between the TTP and the Pak forces, this so-called attempt at brokering peace ceasefire seems to have come to an end. Sushantji, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can.
Your response to this, these developments along the Pak-Afghan border with the TTP strikes?
Anand, nothing really surprising about what is happening. In fact, this is something which has been happening over a period of time. But the only unusual thing about what has happened yesterday, apparently, is that the claims of the Taliban are that the Pakistanis were trying to do some illegal construction along the Durand line. The Taliban tried to stop them. The Pakistanis fired at them. The Taliban fired back. There were casualties on both sides. The Pakistanis, however, say that there were other elements inside Afghanistan using Afghanistan soil to, attack inside Pakistan. And then there is apparently a TTP statement which has claimed responsibility for the skirmish or the attack. So clearly something seems to be happening in that particular area. It's already a kind of a witch's brew, but we have seen over the last couple of weeks the TTP attacks being launched pretty regularly. The ceasefire technically still holds between TTP and the Pakistani forces. But the TTP has said that it is now free to launch what they call defensive attacks. So that has been happening. Meanwhile, the Taliban themselves are quite cut up with the Pakistanis because if you remember Mullah Yaqub, who's the Taliban defense minister, had pointed fingers at Pakistan, saying that they had allowed the use of their airspace for the drone attacks. Now, there is one drone attack which we know happened, which is against Al-Zawahiri of Al-Qaeda. But apparently, there are other attacks also which have taken place, including a suspected drone attack which took out a top TTP commander. And there are reports of drones hovering over parts of eastern Afghanistan. So clearly there is something, the tensions between the Taliban and the Pakistanis are brewing. And I think what the Pakistanis have done yesterday, sending a letter asking the Taliban to shut up this fellow Masood Azhar, I think that also is only going to further spoil spoil the relationship between the Taliban and the Pakistanis. And I think this is a relationship which is only going to go downhill because there is really very little love lost between the Taliban and the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis might think that the Taliban are beholden to them, but the Taliban think that the Pakistanis were extremely unfair to them. They, in fact, treated them very shabbily when they had taken refuge inside Pakistan. A number of top Taliban leaders were killed in custody. They were tortured. They were blackmailed. Their families were held hostage. So perhaps some kind of a payback time as far as the Taliban are concerned is also coming.
True. The TTP has also claimed another attack that targeted a newly established security post with an IED attack in the Sararogha sub-district of South Waziristan tribal district in Pakistan. This wounded a soldier and an engineer. 7 attacks in 3 days, Alok Bansalji.
See, there is no doubt that this was coming for a long time. We have known that TTP was unhappy. Taliban has been unhappy. There were reports emanating from Swat that TTP had made its presence felt. And this sort of a conflict was to come at a time when Pakistan army or Pakistan security forces are overstretched because of floods. Pakistan's economy is in a dire state, and FATF team was visiting Pakistan. And I think all these have contributed to what we've seen flaring up of conflict between TTP and Pakistan army. For Pakistan, they have tried to mask it. I think the media reports have not very clearly said TTP. They have said non-state actors. As some places they have said militants, but without mentioning them. But it is obviously known that if somebody is fighting in Waziristan or somebody is fighting in erstwhile FATA, and if they are fighting against the Pakistan army, it is certainly not PTM, it is actually the TTP which has been fighting. And this has been going on. So this actually shows that the Pakistani government, to my mind, is crumbling to a very great extent because firstly, there are political tensions within Pakistan. Economically, despite the IMF tranche having come through, the rupee is losing ground against dollars. The foreign exchange reserves continue to remain precarious. And on top of that, there is a huge slugfest. And now you are seeing what is happening on the frontiers. The TTP and Pakistan army are fighting with each other. And this comes at a time when a new army chief needs to be appointed in due course. So there are a lot of things. Maybe General Bajwa is trying to create that sort of an environment to get an extension. That could also be a feasibility that we have to look at.
True. This is a big development. We've got more news coming through. We stay in this Pakistan-Afghanistan space because there is trouble brewing there, ladies and gentlemen. And now we've got a big mega exclusive coming through. Last evening, if the Pakistanis sent out this entire farce claiming Masood Azhar is operating out of Afghan soil in Nangarhar and some of the other regions, now the Taliban has now warned Pakistan. Suhail Shaheen has come out and clearly denied the presence of Masood Azhar. Suhail Shaheen, in an exclusive conversation with CNN News 18's investigations editor Manoj Gupta, has said that we have commitment not to allow anyone to use the soil of Afghanistan against any other nation. We want Pakistan not to raise any claims without any evidence because this has negative impact on bilateral relations. We have no evidence that Masood Azhar's presence, but we will definitely search for him for our own satisfaction. Listen in.
Sir, Pakistan is saying that they have sent a letter on Masood Azhar that he is presently in Nangarhar. What do you have to say on that?
I think today also our foreign ministry had their statement remarks. First, that there is no presence of Masood Azhar in Afghanistan. Secondly, we have this commitment not to allow anyone to use the soil of Afghanistan against any other country. Third, we also call on Pakistan and others don't raise claims without any evidence, because being such will have negative impact on bilateral relations. So without evidence, just claiming is not serve no one.
And secondly, sir, you are clearly saying that Nangarhar is not the place where Masood Azhar is hiding.
We do not have any knowledge of his hiding there, but of course, the authorities there, they will have search about the veracity of this claim. But so far, there is no evidence of his being there. This is one thing. But that we also search and make it sure whether in Nangarhar, Kunar, Masood Azhar is not there. Of course, we will do that.
But what is your final take, sir, that whether he is available or not?
No, so far it's not available. We do not have any knowledge. And we have sent a clear message to anyone that Afghanistan is not the place to be use it against other country. It is not the place. We have this commitment, we have this agreement. This is something clear. It's now a policy. So that they claim this, of course, we will see that. But they have not provided evidence where he is, Nangarhar, Kunar province is a large area. In which village, which place, where? So they have not provided that.
Well, so Sohail Shaheen, they're denying and also warning Pakistan, don't make these claims because this is going to affect bilateral relations. But for our own satisfaction, we'll check. So, Sushant Sareen, how would you want to respond to Sohail Shaheen?
Frankly, I neither trust the Pakistanis on anything they say, and I'm very deeply skeptical about any assurances or anything that the Afghans say, because most of those have been observed in their violation. Now, if Mr. Shaheen says that we will examine these reports or these allegations and see whether there is any information about the whereabouts of Masood Azhar in the eastern provinces, Nangarhar and maybe coast, then okay, fine. Let's see what they do about it. But we've heard certain denials from the Taliban even in the past. It's not really added up to much. But what is important is, Anand, Masood Azhar has been the favorite child of the Pakistani military establishment and the dirty tricks department of the ISI. He has also been a very close associate and in fact a kind of virtually a buddy in arms of the Taliban themselves. Now, if he has become a football between the Pakistani military establishment and the Taliban, I think the real story is in that particular aspect of this relationship, rather than whether Masood Azhar is in Afghanistan or in Pakistan. I think from my perspective, it's that dynamic which is playing out between the Pakistanis and the ISI and the Pakistan army and the Taliban on the other hand, which is really something which is quite tantalizing, because it indicates that there is something far deeper and far worse which is at play between the two sides. There is a complete trust deficit between them. There is now, each side is trying to make the other the fall guy. Each side is trying to throw the other under the bus. And to that extent, I think, as purely as an analyst, I think that is what I find quite interesting.
Well, this is the letter that the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, that means the Taliban government and its foreign ministry, has put out. This is the release. The IEA MOFA, Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, rejects media reports asserting that Jaish-e-Mohammed group leader Masood Azhar has sought refuge in Afghanistan. So this is the letter that has come out. We reiterate that the IEA is Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, does not allow any armed opposition in its territory to operate against any other country. We also call on all parties to refrain from such allegations lacking any proof and documentations. Such media allegations can adversely affect bilateral relations. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Afghanistan, Alok Bansalji, coming out and very firmly refuting what Pakistan has claimed, said don't try and unnecessarily poke the bear. That seems to be the tone that's adopted. But how do you trust the IEA or the Taliban? Because Zawahiri was right there in Kabul.
Say that for some time, Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan and Pakistan have been indulging in what is known as Noora Kushti. They are actually trying to pretending to be harsh on each other, primarily to draw in Afghan population to say that this government is not a puppet of Pakistan. And Pakistan is trying to show it to the international community that it has got no linkages with them, or it is not the main primary sponsor of particular regime. And that's why I think this letter is floating around Masood Azhar's whereabouts they are questioning. The fact is Masood Azhar was living in Bahawalpur just a few months ago. It was very, very well known. So now how come Pakistan doesn't know where he has disappeared or where he has gone? Pakistan ought to be knowing where Masood Azhar has gone. So this is just an attempt, I think, a pretension maybe to divert attention or seek FATF sanction, because FATF on ground people were there till a day or two earlier in Pakistan. So they probably wanted to project that they have nothing to do with this Masood Azhar or things like that.
Right.
That could be one way. And I think Taliban is trying to project to their domestic audience, because approval ratings of Taliban have been falling down drastically. All indications that are coming from Afghanistan are that people are extremely unhappy with Taliban regime. So they are probably trying to show that they are not a puppet of Pakistan, because please understand, irrespective of who is in power, an average Afghan detests Pakistan. And
right. Alokji, Sushantji, please stay with me, because we'd like your thoughts on another big developing story and big story and a big development through the day here in India. Only through Monday and Tuesday was there a big gangster crackdown across all large parts or swaths of North India. We also brought to you the gangster confession and the gangster terror tape. One of the aspects that stood out is that the jails were being used as epicenters or hubs for the operations of these gangster networks. Now we move on to another development, and this is not just Delhi jails. This is a realization that the Gujarat ATS has now made a huge startling observation, and they pointed this out. Even as they are cracking down and making a major drugs haul, they are turning around and saying that all of this is being operated from the jails of Punjab. Now, this drug nexus in jails is what the Gujarat ATS has now blown the lid off. The Gujarat-Punjab drug trail, 40 kilograms of drugs worth 200 crores has been seized by the Gujarat ATS. The consignment was ordered by a Nigerian citizen who is lodged in an Amritsar jail. Now, the suspect, Miraj Rahmani, is in a Kapurthala jail and he is linked to seized drugs. Nigerian citizen ordered the drugs from a man named Abdullah in Karachi. Abdullah dispatched the drugs via park fishermen towards the Gujarat border. Suspects Jaggi and Sartaj travelled from Punjab to Gujarat for this entire consignment. The exchange was said to take place at a beach, near the Gujarat border. Suspects Jaggi and Sartaj have been nabbed by the Gujarat ATS, and the Gujarat ATS is also preparing to take the custody of Nigerian citizen who's lodged inside the Kapurthala jail. Janak Dave now joining us live. Janak, दिल्ली की जेलों से फोन के द्वारा मर्डर ऑर्केस्ट्रेट किए जा रहे हैं, ड्रग रिंग्स और एक्सटॉर्शन रैकेट्स चलाए जा रहे हैं, पर ये सिर्फ दिल्ली में ही नहीं, बाकी जगहों पर भी हो रहा है. यहाँ पर एक नाइजीरियन सिटीजन, एक फॉरेन नेशनल कपूरथला जेल में बैठकर कराची से ड्रग्स ऑर्डर करता है, जो कि डिलीवरी गुजरात में ली जानी है, और लोग वहां गए भी है डिलीवरी लेने के लिए.
बिल्कुल आनंद, देखिए बहुत बड़ा खुलासा है गुजरात एटीएस से, क्योंकि हर बार ये कहा जा रहा था, गुजरात पुलिस के अधिकारियों का मोरल तोड़ते हुए सवाल ये पूछे जाते रहे कि क्यों केवल गुजरात से पकड़ा जा रहा है और उसके मास्टरमाइंड कौन है, माफिया कौन है, क्यों उनको धरा नहीं जा रहा। लेकिन अब चूंकि पिछले एक साल में अगर आनंद देखे तो लगभग 6,700 करोड़ का ड्रग्स गुजरात एटीएस पकड़ चुकी है। उसमें से लगभग 1,200 से 1,500 करोड़ के आसपास का ड्रग महज पंजाब की जेलों से जेलों के अंदर बैठे माफिया मंगवा रहे हैं। जो नाम सामने आए वो अमृतसर कह लीजिए, कपूरथला कह लीजिए, फिरोजपुर कह लीजिए, फरीदकोट कह लीजिए, चारों जेल में जो बैठे हैं कैदी, वो अलग अलग तरीके से अलग अलग रूट से कंसाइनमेंट मंगवा रहे हैं। आज जो कंसाइनमेंट पकड़ा गया है वो चीफ नाम का जो नाइजीरियन जो अमृतसर जेल में है, और उसके अलावा जो अमन रहमानी है उसने कपूरथला जेल से वहाँ पे अब्दुल्ला से बात की और कराची से मंगवाया। यानी पंजाब पुलिस को भनक नहीं है कि जेल के भीतर रहते हुए इतना बड़ा नेक्सस चल रहा है कि उसको बाय रूट अगर गुजरात से उसको लाना है तो अपने लोग भी यहाँ भेजते हैं। हालांकि गुजरात एटीएस और कोस्ट गार्ड की सतर्कता के चलते स्पेसिफिक इनपुट था और वो धरे गए। जग्गी और उसका जो साथी था सरताज, वो दोनों पकड़े गए हैं और उसी पूछताछ में ये नाम सामने आए। बिल्कुल, तो उसके बाद ये जो सामने आए और अब जो सामने जो जानकारी गुजरात एटीएस की ओर से दी जा रही है कि इसी साल महीने जो 2 महीने पहले जो जुलाई के अंत में जो 375 करोड़ का जो ड्रग्स पकड़ा गया, वो ड्रग्स भी जेल से मंगवाया गया था। तो उससे पहले पिछले साल जो नवंबर दिसंबर में पकड़ा गया वो भी जेल में रहे कैदी द्वारा मंगवाया गया था। तो ये नेक्सस लगातार चलता रहता है और जेल के भीतर से नेक्सस चल रहा है। सीमा पार पाकिस्तान के साथ संपर्क में रहते हैं, वो ट्रेसिंग भी नहीं हो रही। यानी किस तरीके की कानून व्यवस्था है वो भी एक सवाल खड़ा करता है और जेल के भीतर रहते हुए नेक्सस को चलाया जा रहा है। ये सबसे बड़ी चौंकाने वाली बात है जो गुजरात एटीएस ने आज अपने इन्वेस्टिगेशन में सामने लाई है।
ये कितने टाइम से इस जेल में लॉज है ये नाइजीरियन सिटीजन? ये ऑर्डर कब प्लेस किया गया? तो ऐसा है कि इसकी गिरफ्तारी ऑर्डर के बाद हुई, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, या फिर ये जेल में बैठ के ये पूरा धंधा चला रहा है? और इन लोगों को, जग्गी और सरताज, ये क्या इस नाइजीरियन से कांटेक्ट में थे या इसमें और भी लोग शामिल हैं जनक?
बिल्कुल, देखिए ये चीफ उसका नाम है, वो चीफ को कोड वर्ड से नाम से जानते हैं। चूंकि आप जानते हैं आनंद की इस तरीके के जो नारकोटिक्स के धंधे में होते हैं वो सही नाम अपने इस्तेमाल नहीं करते हैं, तो कोड वर्ड में उसको चीफ के नाम से, हालांकि उसकी आइडेंटिटी रिवील कर दी गुजरात एटीएस ने कि वो नाइजीरियन व्यक्ति हैं और वो अमृतसर जेल में कैद है। और उसके अलावा जो नाम आया मेराज रहमानी, वो मेराज रहमानी के साथ ये 2 लड़के जो अहमदाबाद गुजरात भेजे गए ये ड्रग्स का कंसाइनमेंट लेने के लिए, उन दोनों को गुजरात एटीएस ने जब पकड़ा, इस कंसाइनमेंट को लेने आ रहे थे, स्पेसिफिक इंटेल था, ह्यूमन इंटेलिजेंस के था, तो उसको जब ट्रेस किया गया तो वो ड्रग्स भी पकड़ा गया बीच समंदर से, जखौ से लगभग 33 नॉटिकल माइल, तो वही 60 किलोमीटर के आसपास दूरी होती है, तो वहां से बीच समुद्र से ये ड्रग पकड़ा गया और ड्रग्स का कंसाइनमेंट बीच समुद्र में ही लेना था। तो ये इस तरीके से नेक्सस चलते रहे। तो अब जो चीफ है, जो नाइजीरियन व्यक्ति है, उसकी सिटीजनशिप है, उसको, वो भी नारकोटिक्स के मामले में ही जेल में कैद है अमृतसर में, तो उसकी कस्टडी गुजरात एटीएस लेने की कोशिश करेगी। तो और फिर बाकी खुलासे आने वाले दिन में हो सकते हैं। आनंद
जी, Janak, thank you for your inputs. We'll take this to Alok Bansal and Sushant Sareen. Now look at the overall details. This entire corruption nexus, it's all coming, the drugs nexus is all operating from the jails of Punjab. Multiple seizures which have been made have been connected to Amritsar, Kapurthala, Firozpur and Faridkot jails. 5 kilograms of drugs worth 375 crore was seized in July. It was ordered by a suspect Bagga Khan, who's lodged in Faridkot jail. 146 kilograms of drugs worth 730 crore was seized in 2021. It was ordered by suspect Bhola, who's also lodged in Firozpur jail. So the ports of Gujarat are being used to order in drugs for supply, sale or whatever in Punjab. So this entire Udta Punjab is all happening via Gujarat from Karachi, sourced from that region, but operating out of jails. Alok Bansal.
See, there is no doubt that Punjab has been hit badly by this drugs trade which has been going on. Earlier, smaller quantities used to be smuggled across the international border. But now these drug lords have become bigger. And if you need a bigger consignment, it can only come through sea. And the closest sea coast from Punjab is Gujarat. And that's how you are seeing this is happening. What is even more surprising is that the way jails in India are functioning, and especially in Punjab are functioning, is a real cause for concern. Because if these people sitting in jails have not only access to phones, but they are able to requisition their people, place orders across international borders, and get their consignments, move their men to collect it, then the collusion of jail authorities is a must. I think the government must straight away take to task all those jail authorities where these criminals are lodged, who have been known to have ordered these consignments, because these consignments cannot come without the collusion of the jail authorities. How has a chap sitting in the jail communicated with the outside world? I think that itself is a question which needs to be answered. And I think Punjab government and the central government must crack down on the police officials and the jail officials who are involved in this sort of a thing. Because this money that is earned by drug trade is actually used for anti-national activities. This is being used to fund the anti-national elements, and very often this is the money which contributes to terrorism.
Sushant Sareen, Kurukshetra and Kapurthala, these are all areas from where RDX has been recovered. Now they are saying Kaithal also RDX has been recovered. Now we are given to understand these people, these gangsters are sitting, like Lawrence Bishnoi was sitting in Tihar. These people are sitting inside jails and running their karobar from there.
Anand, it's shocking what is happening in India today. Normally, jails are associated with the end of criminal activity. Here it seems that jails are the next step to go up to the next higher level of criminal activity. And as my friend Alok very correctly says, that this is inconceivable without the connivance and the complicity of jail staff. How is it that these people look? Do you remember? And the government of the state. Let me give you an example. Do you remember this criminal Mukhtar Ansari?
Yes.
And how much effort was made to keep him in a Punjab jail? Why in a Punjab jail? Because he would be very secure and he could do all his business of sitting inside jail in 5-star luxury, which is what most of these criminals in Punjab jails are doing. They're running their businesses from there. What we are also seeing, Anand, is now a nexus between narcotics, terrorism and criminals. And of course, the cops. So you are seeing this kind of a nexus, which is what makes for a banana state and a failed state. Now, I know this. I'm being extremely blunt, and I'm being very, very, upfront on this. But I think this is something that you have to call out, because what has been happening, and this has been happening for years on end now. I won't put the blame only on the Aam Aadmi Party government. They haven't improved anything, but and things probably have gone a shade worse. But I think the previous governments are equally culpable for what has happened. The Congress and the Akali BJP combined are equally culpable for what has been happening in Punjab over the last 15-20 years. And this nexus is destroying generation after generation in Punjab. Now, you can very easily point a finger at Gujarat that it's coming from the Gujarat coast. That is what has been caught. There is a lot of smuggling which is taking place across the border. Because that's the simplest and the safest way to come. And most of the Punjab police has been compromised in many forms. All that you need to look, you don't need to be a genius to break this nexus. All you need to look is at the lifestyles, at the kind of properties, at the wealth of people who are jail staffers and people who are in the cop service, people who are in the bureaucracy. The moment you start cracking down on that, you will start unraveling this whole nexus. It is inconceivable that it can happen without their involvement. And nobody wants to do it because everybody is on the take. Everybody thinks it's money for free, and that's why they are going ahead and doing it. And I think it's appalling what is happening. But it's in front of us and nobody wants to do anything about it.
No, but see, the other way to do it is that crack the whip hard. The stick approach has to be very, very strong here, Alokji.
Part of the problem in that is the incentivization for many of the people in the law enforcement agencies who are who are complicit in this particular activity is that very often criminals in jail threaten them and their families. They say that, okay, fine, we are inside, but we know enough people outside who will, carry out certain operations against your families. So people say, okay, fine, yeah, why should I uphold the flag? Because the rest of your criminal judicial system has also collapsed completely. If any action is taken against those criminals inside the jail or against any of their associates outside the jail, you will have this whole mafia of the human rightists coming in and saying that, why are you doing this? So, it's a mess, and nobody wants to clean it up. Nobody wants to clean it up.
Because like you said,
that's the reality.
Yeah, no, it is a mess and nobody wants to clear it up. But one of the aspects that can be that if this Nigerian citizen was operating out of an Amritsar jail, then you also indict and also add the jail superintendent and the jail authorities, blanket all of them for the same kind of trafficking of drugs charge, Alok ji. You have to say, agar tumhare watch mein hua tha, you will be culpable directly. It's not about getting a phone, making 60,000 or a lakh of rupees take on top of for providing a service, because that one phone can cause so much of damage. So you are also culpable.
This is one of the issue which I think needs to be taken. Definitely. I think the jail superintendent must be suspended immediately, whether he is directly involved or not. If under his control such a thing is happening, then he is culpable. Whether either he is inefficient, where he doesn't know what's happening in his jail, or he is directly involved. So the first thing that should be done is the jail superintendent should be suspended. I think this sort of an accountability outside the military is lacking in this country. In the military, invariably, generally, the military leadership is always held accountable in case of a problem. But in what we are seeing is in the civil administration, invariably, when there is a problem, the higher-ups try to get away. No, he's not responsible. Somebody lower down has done that. The fact is, if somebody lower down has done it, then you are accountable because you are running the show. So I think this thing needs to come up, and this needs to be brought in where the jail superintendents of all the jails from where the convicts are running drug trafficking should be suspended forthwith, and the action should be taken against them.
Right. Thank you for your inputs, and wonderful speaking with you as always, Captain Alok Bansal and Sushant Shareen. We're going to take a very short break. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, Congress Chodo, not just in Goa, even in Assam. And there is a link, there is a reason why. There are many who are saying there is no point walking and talking Bharat Jodo when you cannot keep your own flock together. So it is time for Congress Chodo. So the Bharat Jodo push, but the Cong Jodo reality. We'll speak to Kamrul Chaudhary when we come back. Kamrul Islam, stay with us.